got the mic on.
All right, that was an exclusive look at Where Winds Meet from Everstone Studio. It's a hyper-stylish action game with a big, gorgeous world to run around in, and some super interesting gameplay mechanics that we saw there as well to play with. So, how are we all feeling about this? That looked great.
That was awesome. That's probably my game of the show, honestly. I really, really enjoyed that reveal. Dorna, what do you think?
I really appreciate, especially in that extended gameplay look, sort of the variety of gameplay we got to see. I think that's one of the coolest things was because from minute to minute I was like, oh, I think I get what this game is. Oh, there's new elements to it. It's like, oh, and then you see them sort of infiltrating and doing some cool combat around a ship, and then you see them doing stuff and sneaking around in more of like a town-based area, and then really diving into some like Chinese mythology and diving deep into some fantastical stuff. I think there's a lot of variety there, and that really has me excited to explore what it's going to be like through the path of that game.
Our reaction was Ghost of Tsushima until a few moments later when we got more of an Assassin's Creed vibe,
Yeah, and
right?
that's really like, you know, we've, for years, fans have been crying out for an Assassin's Creed game set in the Far East, and this seems to be the game that's delivering that, obviously in its own unique way, because there's some really interesting powers we saw on display there as well with the. It's almost like you could chain together a couple of things, which I presume is based on some sort of, you know, renewable resource that you'll earn, and then you can just clear out a handful of bad guys at once. It looked great.
Yeah, they're really neat in how you like seem to mark people and then execute this sort of AoE attack. I really, really love that. One of the things that I thought this trailer did really well was it showed a wide variety of different styles of gameplay, because it opens up and you actually talk to the little girl on the street basically and get some information from her. You trade that information to steal a secret, and then they show traversal, they show the open world aspect of the game, and there's so much going on here that I do see vibes of Assassin's Creed, and I do see...
And we're talking now, I guess, because we got to remember that Assassin's Creed is now basically an open world role-playing game. Not that there aren't RPG elements in this. In fact, it is described as an interactive open world action RPG. But this, it's more like classic Assassin's Creed for a lot of those bits.
Yeah, and then like combat-wise, just there we were looking at swordplay, and that gives me Ghost of Tsushima vibes again, you know. So I am stoked for this. I really want to learn more about all those different magical abilities, for lack of a better term, and whatever is going on here. So like anything that relates to mythology and stuff like that, it's always super intriguing to me. So I'm really, really excited about this.
So Jonathan, this is set during the Song Dynasty, so somewhere between the year 960 and 1279.
If you're going to ask me history questions,
no, I'm not gonna make it that tough on you, but yeah, like I feel like this is kind of a we don't see this Chinese mythology and this era of history explored much in video games. I mean, we do have Black Myth Wukong to look forward to. That's also tapping into some Chinese mythology, and that probably not coincidentally also looks amazing. That's really using its setting and its mythology really well. But yeah, this was a standout. I mean, what do we know? Can we surmise anything else from that trailer, Jonathan? There was a lot, as Destin was noting there, there are kind of hints of a lot of things.
Yeah, I think what surprised me the most was some of the, dense, I don't want to say city, but like sort of settlement areas or cultural hotspots that it seems your character will be. And I'm curious of sort of what the flow of gameplay will be, if there will be these like sort of hub towns you go to, if there's one or two main ones that we'll be going in and out of. But I really like showing sort of life and culture going on as well, because I think what this trailer really does well is sort of show you what you think is kind of it's going to be a bit more grounded and realistic take on things, and then it really jumps into the mythological toward the end. And as Destin was really saying, like, I really want to know, as someone who doesn't know this mythology well, of what was going on toward the end of those trailers. I'm sure people who do know that myth better than us will be able to explain some of it, but I think there was a really great balance of sort of grounded swordplay and interaction with other people, and then really unique and interesting mythological takes.
Destin, I'll give you the last word on this, but one thing I liked about this trailer, one of many things, is that it would have just been an awesome trailer had it just been that CG bit at the beginning, like the first minute or whatever it was, minute and a half of it. But then we got gameplay too, which was so nice to see.
Yeah, we saw a lot of CG trailers during opening night live, so this was sort of a treat to see actual gameplay, actually going into the city and seeing like sort of on the ground, and then also seeing traversal. We also got to look at those set pieces at the beginning. This is definitely a standout for me. Absolutely.
All right, so we got another look at Homeworld 3 for you old school PC fans at opening night live as well. And we have Akeem here with the developers to give us all the details. Akeem, take it away.
If you're into real-time strategy games, you're likely familiar with the Homeworld series, which first took flight back in 1999. And many moons later, we're gearing up for parts unknown in Homeworld 3. And here to make those parts known to us right now is Homeworld co-creator Rob Cunningham. Rob, how you doing?
I'm well, thanks. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. Now, let's kick this off. Now, Homeworld returning represents the return of, I would have to say, one of the most iconic space strategy games of all time. How is today's technology kind of like allowing your team to truly bring Homeworld back the way you first envisioned it?
Back in the day, and I'm talking like 2000, 2001, we had dreams of what we would love to do with the fantasy and the sci-fi, style and world. And it was simply impossible. It just couldn't be done. So we ended up putting stuff into the backdrops and the skyboxes and stuff like that. But now with Unreal and the technology we've got, we're totally able to bring that into the game and just really give it the depth and structure that we dreamed of back in those days.
Homeworld 3 is a continuation of the story you first set out to explore many years ago. Like, what can you tell us about the expansive universe we'll get to explore in the campaign?
So the campaign it's obviously a sequel. So the campaign is the continuing of events after Homeworld 2. So at the end of Homeworld 2, the player is shown there's a huge discovery of a hyperspace gate network across the entire galaxy. So travel could be easy and ubiquitous for everyone, and it was sort of billed as this glorious golden age of Sajet that was going to take place. And as is often the case, what appears to be wonderful turns out to not be quite so wonderful. And there's darkness and problems, of course, to deal with as the story develops.
Now with that, with that knowledge that we have now, what key elements can you kind of tell us that'll, I guess, help us understand the narrative direction moving forward in Homeworld 3?
So the hero of the Homeworld franchise from Homeworld 1 to Homeworld 2 was Karen Sajet. She was fleet commander and the sort of mind of the mothership, and she was the navigator of the mothership, and she was mentally plugged in with cables into her head into the hyperspace core of the mothership, which allowed her to travel vast distances and so forth. Homeworld 3 takes place about 100 years after Homeworld 2, and the hero from Homeworld 2, Karen Sajet, has been lost in space, and a great problem is taking place in the galaxy. Gates we're having all sorts of catastrophic problems. So the player is introduced to a new character called Imogen Sajet from the same kith which is the science kith in the fiction. And she's the sort of successor to Karen, and the new mission to go and deal with the problem is sent, and that's the player's job, to deal with the problem.
One way to deal with the problem is, of course, with combat. Now, we got fleet combat. The fleet combat system, I have to say, it looks breathtaking in this next installment. From what I've seen so far, what can we expect to be, kind of like the same and different in Homeworld 3 combat-wise?
So players can expect the same basic staples of fleet combat with the different classes of ships, from the strike craft up through the capital ships into the super capital ships, and the same sort of ballistics and unit pairing that was established in the previous games. But new to the franchise with Homeworld 3 will be all sorts of terrain-based gameplay. So because we have these giant structures in space, huge megaliths, giant ice shelves, all sorts of incredible geometry in the level. It's no longer just empty 3D space. Now we have, cover as a mechanic. There's hiding as a mechanic. There's, bottlenecking and unit filtration through different apertures and cavities in the terrain. So it's much more interesting and dynamic as a fleet combat game.
Now with that knowledge, I'm pretty sure, Rob, you probably have seen what some of the fans have been saying online. I know I do a lot of trolling online, and fans have been asking on Reddit, will mothership management be more like Deserts of Eric, or will they be able to kind of like specialize, customize motherships in Homeworld 3, like over arcs and campaigns? Like, what can you tell us about that?
So the short answer is there will not be mothership customization like there was in Deserts, but there will still have that mothership progression, and ship production progression over the course of the campaign.
I'm super excited for Homeworld 3. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yes, now this game sounds, dare I say, out of this world. Yes, it does. 2023 can't come anytime sooner for us to hop on into Homeworld 3. Now, we're going to keep the gaming goodness coming with more, so don't go anywhere.
GamesCom 2022 is presented by Samsung SSD, essential for gaming.
Hey you! Yes, you! Do you have FOMC? Fear of missing Gamescom? Relax. Gamescom is everywhere you want. Gamescom now. Register now.
In a world with non-stop news about Marvel, Netflix, and Star Wars, you need a show with accurate reporting, hard-hitting commentary, and me. I'm Akeem Lawanson, the host of The Fix Entertainment. Whether it's the latest superhero scoop, film fiasco, or anime announcement, I'll be right here covering all the latest in major studio headlines and pop culture news. Make sure to catch The Fix Entertainment wherever you watch IGN.
Tune into IGN1 for the latest news on your favorite releases, gameplay exclusives, and all the entertainment you can handle. And maybe even some you can't.
Cinefix on IGN1, your friendly Friday night home for film fanaticism.
You're watching The Weekly Fix, ready to fill you in on anything you may have missed in the world of gaming and entertainment.
Find it all in one place on IGN1.
They turned into a network. Who knew?
Now, because moving things from house to house in real life can be kind of exhausting and tedious, the best way to have fun while lugging a bunch of objects around would be to do it virtually. Now, fortunately, that's where my next guest and his devoted team behind the game, Moving Out, step in. Now, joining me to talk about the sequel to the 2020 co-op moving sim is senior game designer for SMG Studio, Dave Lockman. How are you, Dave?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Now, first off, how did you and your team manage to make moving so damn fun, and what can we expect to experience in Moving Out 2 that'll top its predecessor?
Well, with moving, we always thought that it was it's one of the most stressful things you can do. So we thought we'd make a game out of that and make it less stressful and more cathartic by just grabbing a couch and throwing it out the window and chucking televisions into a truck and breaking them and just generally just having fun. So with Moving Out, we wanted to expand on that and get really wacky and really expand on how silly we can be. And I think we've done that, and we've got really silly.
Yeah, that actually brings me to my next question. Like, I remember having so many chaotic moments with my friends and family playing the first game. It's the only way I can actually get them to help me move by playing a game. Now, what level of chaos did you all kind of like ramp it up to in Moving Out 2?
Well, in Moving Out 2, we've doubled the scope, so we've got twice as many levels, and by doing that, we've taken the Moving Out, the smooth movers group of movers into different dimensions. We started making this before the kind of multiverse craze happened, but now so it wasn't it wasn't it was us just playing off that. So we've taken it to multiple dimensions and really kind of gone really silly with it. We've revealed the Packmore, we've revealed future. We've got 2 more dimensions to reveal, and they're really kind of out there. Instead of just staying in space and staying on Earth, we've gone to different dimensions, and we've got the players really moving and running around some exciting environments.
I mean, that's really awesome because, like, I mean, as you know, as the world knows, like, just like playing within the multiverse is like all the rage now. Like, a lot of people are doing it, so I'm glad that's like another. Y'all are pretty much heightening things with that. Now, the first game, it didn't have an online multiplayer component. I want to talk a little bit about multiplayer. So I know players had to use Parsec if they wanted to play online with friends. Is there like a new feature that maybe has that ability kind of built in, or will players have to use like a similar feature?
No, we've built the sequel from the ground up with online in mind. So we've got online out of the box. So players can play online with no third-party software or anything like that, and it's cross-platform as well. So you can, if you're on Xbox, you can play against PlayStation and vice versa. And we really wanted to bring online to the sequel because it was a big part of the first game that was missing. It was what players really wanted, and we spent a lot of time and a lot of development putting that in. So we're really proud to get that in and see players go online and play worldwide.
Well, Dave, you just made me and my mama very happy. I play with her all the time. So she's all the way in Chicago. I'm here in LA. So that's exciting to hear. Now, what I personally loved about Moving Out, the first game, was the unique and inclusive customization options. Will Moving Out 2 kind of like, I guess, expand on those features, and what can you tell us about some of the new features?
Yeah, absolutely. We've brought back the first cast of characters. So they're as soon as you boot up the game, you can play every single character that was in MO1, and then we've brought back we've created a whole bunch of new characters. So there's a new cast. There's a new what we call Fab 5, which are the like poster 5 players. And throughout the game, you'll be able to unlock customizations and little trinkets and things that you can dress your players up with. And we've got, again, we've ramped up the silliness. So there's a lot of silly characters and silly things that you can play as, and we don't take ourselves seriously at all. So we just want people to have fun and be silly, and I think that's what we've done with the characters.
I mean, honestly, that's what it's all about. It's about being silly. So I appreciate that you all are even going even further with the silliness. Now, the first game, it did a great job of, allowing you to properly adjust the gameplay to kind of suit your play style and gaming level. What can you tell us about some of the accessibility features in Moving Out 2?
So we got a really good response from accessibility in Moving Out 1. So we've brought all of those same features back, and we've kept that in mind throughout designing every level. We've kept color blindness and difficulty levels. So we want to give players we want a wide range of players to play. So we want it to be a challenge, but we don't want it to be a blocker. So accessibility and just getting everybody in there having fun is big for us. So we've brought back all the accessibility features, but also this time around we've designed the levels from the ground up with that in mind. So I think it's going to bring in even more players doing that kind of thing.
Now, we talked a lot about multiplayer. Sometimes my mom and my friends are not available to play with me, so I'm kind of curious, what's the single player experience like?
See, again, that was one thing in MO1. It was not an afterthought, but our focus was multiplayer, and our focus is multiplayer again for MO2. But again, we've kept it single player in mind, and there are a few things that you'd see in single player that you won't see in multiplayer, like different movables that won't work in single player in multiplayer that we designed specifically for single player. So it's a similar experience, but we've put a lot more development into helping the player have a bit more fun by themselves.
Well, I'm super excited for this, Dave. I'm also you're forcing me to make new friends because I want to play with more people, and more people need to kind of experience this. And so I'm super excited for this. Dave, thank you so much for telling us a little bit more about Moving Out 2. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us, and I hope everyone enjoys the game.
Yes. Now, I think it's safe to say we're all looking forward to Moving Out 2, but we got to keep it moving ourselves. More gaming goodness coming your way, so stick around.
Well, we just took a closer look at both Moving Out 2 and Homeworld 3. Up next, our own Rebecca Valentine got an exclusive chat with Jeff Gardner, who had a prolific career at Bethesda Game Studios working on everything from Oblivion to Fallout 76. His new studio, Something Wicked Games, teased a new game called Word Song. Well, what is it? Let's find out.
I'm Rebecca Valentine, and I am here with Jeff Gardner to talk about his new studio, Something Wicked, and his new game, Weird Song. Jeff, how's it going?
It's going great. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today.
Thank you for being here. So let's just get a baseline idea of what we just saw. Jeff, what is Weird Song?
Weird Song is a preternatural or occult historical fantasy game set in Middle Ages Portugal, where the player not only will be able to explore that reality of that time period in a very, very fantastical way, but also to explore the nature of their reality. We really want this game to be about the idea that there's no such thing as a reliable narrator. Your brain is not a passive receptor of information. We're going to plumb the depths of the player's subconscious and how that affects the waking world.
Wow, that's a lot. That sounds really cool. So, Middle Ages Portugal. What was going on in Middle Ages Portugal that you were really interested to explore?
So after I got part of Bethesda about a year ago, I took some time to reflect, and I was reading a book called First Templar Nation, which is an alternative history book about the origin of the Knights Templar. I'm very into both. I like to read all sorts of different things from different points of view. And as I was reading this book, it was a lot of synchronicity was happening because I had visited Portugal right before COVID with my wife, and we had happened to visit some of the historical locations featured heavily in this book, Tamar Castle in particular, and Sintra also. And as this idea was coming together of really what the Templars were about, again, in a mythological sense, they had this thing called the Ritual Rebirth. And so you're just like, what can we explore in this space that also would make a compelling and ultimately an amazingly entertaining RPG?
Wow. So who are you in Weird Song? Are you just sort of a bystander? What kind of person are you?
This is interesting because we are setting the studio up to allow people to come in and sort of give us their great ideas. So we really haven't defined the story yet or what the player is going to be. You're definitely going to be able to play any race or gender you want, and you're going to be able to sort of, set your course as you dictate and play who you want to play. Again, very fantastical version of the Templars in Portugal in particular. And we want to attract talent that's going to come in and help us create this. So we don't want to define too many things and make it too rigid and let people give us their great ideas as we're building the story.
I mean, that's really cool. So I know a lot of people, when they start to make a game, they often have a story in mind already, but it sounds like you don't have a story. You have just this sort of place and these ideas you want to explore, and you're going to let the story flow from that. Is that right?
Yeah, settings and themes are important in Weird Song, and we don't want to, again, I sort of want to set high-level goals what the gist of things are going to be and let people, plus in RPGs there's so many stories being told. There's the main story and all these side stories. I want people to come in and really dictate what they find interesting and compelling, explore different versions of this narrative and this world, and see sort of what makes a compelling game.
Oh, that's really cool. So even though we don't have a story set out yet, you probably have at least some idea right now of what the player might be doing. You said it's an RPG, so I assume there's going to be some kind of combat, and you said something kind of along the lines of side quests. So we're going to see RPG-ish trappings, right? Oh,
absolutely. I've been playing RPGs for years. Obviously, I was blessed to be able to create some. Hopefully, some people here watching this have played. And remember, this is a coming together of my design director, Charles Staples, comes from Obsidian. He was there for 15 years. I was at Bethesda for 15 years. Charles was in charge of the design for The Outer Worlds. He was a lead level designer on Fallout New Vegas. So this is a coming together of these two great RPG houses to make something unique and cool. And we're doing so with Weird Song.
Yeah, and you haven't just played RPGs for a really long time. You've worked on some of the arguably best RPGs out there, right? You worked on Skyrim, you worked on multiple Fallout games. What of their DNA should we expect to see in Weird Song?
I learned so much at my time at Bethesda, and it's funny because I have been working there since. The last game I was able to play as a fan there was Homeworld, right? Which dates me a little bit, but you will see. There's obvious things to say, choice and consequence. But we'll bring in the Obsidian, shades of gray and deep and in-depth dialogue trees. And then we're going to bring in these we really want to have big, monumental, these elements that you can only do in single player games where you are really affecting the world around you and maybe other worlds as well.
That's really cool. Well, I think we're running out of time. So Jeff, do you know when we might expect to see a little bit more from Weird Song?
We plan on engaging the community really soon and getting their opinions and ideas. Again, if anything, I'm there. Games are a collaborative experience, and not only do you want to bring in people that you're able to collaborate with in amazing and unique ways, but you want to involve fans as well to get their ideas and opinions. And there's a lot of fans of RPGs, and they have a lot of opinions, which is awesome. And so hopefully we will reveal more in the coming year, at least some teases of actual gameplay. But we're really excited to be working on this, and I really appreciate the opportunity today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm really excited to see more. Jeff, thank you so much for your time. And for more on Weird Song and a lot of the other games that we've seen this week, keep it here at IGN.
There exists two lies. One before the shadow, and one behind the eye.
GamesCom 2022 is presented by Samsung SSD, essential for gaming.
The only thing better than listening to IGN podcasts is watching them. Luckily, all your favorite weekly shows are here on IGN 1. Whether you're chasing the latest Xbox releases with Unlocked, looking for your PlayStation fix with Beyond, tracking everything coming to Switch with Nintendo Voice Chat, or catching up on this week's gaming news with GameScoop, we've got you covered. Check it out. Tune in every weekday at 5 p.m. for the best gaming coverage right here on IGN1.
If you're not following IGN on social media, what are you waiting for? We're constantly updating our feeds to bring you the latest news, gameplay, custom original content, memes, the best user-generated videos and art, and a whole lot more. Be part of the conversation throughout the year. Follow IGN on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and Snapchat.
Everybody loves watching a speedrun of their favorite game, but what if you got a chance to peek into the mind of the developers behind those games as they watch their hard work get completely destroyed right in front of them?
What is happening right now?
That's exactly what happens on every episode of Devs React to Speedruns. We invite you to ride along with the developers as they watch, react, and enjoy some of the craziest gameplay by the most skilled speedrunners on the planet. Tune in every Saturday for a brand new episode.
GamesCom Opening Night Live has made one thing very clear. We're going to need a lot more storage for all these new games. When it comes to upgrading storage for PC gaming, Samsung SSD has it handled. The Samsung 990 Pro and 990 Pro with heatsink are perfect for PC gaming. Optimize the gaming experience with the Samsung 990 Pro SSD that offers read and write speeds of up to 7450 and 6900 megabytes a second respectively. Nice. That makes the Samsung 990 Pro perform up to 55% faster than the 980 across creative and productivity software, and of course, gaming. But all that speed is bound to turn up the heat, right? Wrong. Built on low-power architecture, Samsung's newly designed controller improves the SSD's power efficiency by up to 50% compared to the 980 Pro. Plus, the 990 Pro's controller and heat spreader label feature a nickel coating for reliable thermal management. And in case that wasn't enough, the Thermal Guard technology further ensures the drive's temperature stays in the optimal range. And if players are still sweating over temperature concerns, the Samsung 990 Pro with heatsink offers an additional layer of thermal control to prevent performance drops that arise from overheating. And it lets them do it in style thanks to the built-in RGB light, which is fully customizable using the Magician software program. All these features add up to make the Samsung 990 Pro and 990 Pro with heatsink an excellent solution for laptop and desktop upgrades, especially for next-gen gaming. The 990 Pro speeds up loading times for PC games that employ Direct Storage API, meaning more time playing and less time waiting. And thankfully, it's easy to install. Simply slot the Samsung 990 Pro or 990 Pro with heatsink into the appropriate M.2 slot on the computer motherboard. Make full use of the 2 terabytes of storage by filling it with all the brand new games and DLC showcased during today's Gamescom Opening Night Live. IGN is proud to be partnered with Samsung SSD for our IGN coverage of Gamescom Opening Night Live.
Sometimes, all it takes to change the galaxy is a trio of losers trying to get through a bad day.
If you happen to see any corpses along the way, don't worry about them. They're just, don't worry about them.
Hello, I'm Stella Chung, and with me today I have James Lopez, Director of Production at Gearbox Software, and Lynn Joyce, Head of Writing, to help me answer any burning questions we have about new tales from the Borderlands. How are y'all doing? Doing really well.
Doing great, thanks for having us.
Okay, so I have to ask, because this is one of the most curious questions I have. Is this a continuation of the story from the previous Tales from the Borderlands, or is it its own?
So New Tales, as the name would suggest, is an entirely new story. This is going to be a standalone product inside of the Tales from the Borderlands franchise, meaning that it's a new set of characters, new story. It does take place on Promethea, which of course we revealed to players back during Borderlands 3, but it's entirely new storyline compared to the original Tales from the Borderlands game. We do have some callbacks inside of it, though. The hardcore fans will notice some characters from previous games being mentioned or making appearances inside of it. But yeah, it's a spiritual successor, is what we consider to be from Tales from Borderlands.
Okay, cool. And where does the story fit in the timeline of Borderlands?
New Tales from the Borderlands primarily takes place on Promethea to start with, and the people of Promethea and living in Meridian City, including our three protagonists, are still recuperating, rebuilding, and piecing life back together again about a year after the events of Borderlands 3.
Ooh, okay, so it's kind of like a continuation of Borderlands 3 story, or at least kind of picking off in the environment of it.
Correct, yeah. In linear time, we are, again, about a year after the events of Borderlands 3 on Promethea, and so you'll start to kind of look outside of Vault Hunters and more into the sort of everyday civilians of Promethea and Meridian City life.
That's really cool. I don't think we've gotten a story where it's like just the civilians other than the previous Tales from the Borderlands, so that's really interesting. But I also wanted to ask, has the art style changed from the original at all? I noticed the animations and art looked a little bit more like Borderlands' traditional style than Tales from previous.
Yeah, there's always this sort of underlying consistency to the BL art style that people immediately recognize. But some of our biggest changes this time around were things to the models, which of course like what people see when they look at the characters, that allows us to have higher quality animations. We went all in on performance capture for this game during a pandemic, which is crazy. But we worked with amazingly talented actors who were able to do a lot of emoting so that whenever you're talking to them and they're giving you feedback, it's not just like a slight scowl or a little eyebrow raise. You're able to experience the entire emotion of their face because of the updates that the Gearbox Quebec team did with the art side.
You mentioned some reoccurring characters that we might pick up on, but what about guns with legs? So we saw guns with legs come back. So are there any other weapons that we're going to see come back from previous games?
There's a conflict going on between TDR and Atlas. Basically, during the reconstruction phase of Promethea, like Lynn mentioned, TDR shows up and tries to take over the planet. And so you're going to see a lot more Atlas and TDR tech around. And people who are a kind of gamer who can like look at the different parts of a gun and Borderlands and go, oh, I think it does this based on this model. They'll recognize immediately some of these guns.
So you mentioned recurring characters. Can you give us a hint as to who we might see return?
So what I can tell you, you will definitely see some familiar faces on your adventure throughout New Tales from the Borderlands, but we also poured our hearts into creating a diverse new ensemble of characters for fans to fall in love with. And honestly, I am most excited for players to get to meet them all.
I'm excited too, but also I'm really excited for what I think we saw a glimpse of. Did we see a glimpse of a fighting game with figurines? Can you tell us more about that or any other silly interactions we might see that we haven't seen in the previous game?
Yeah, for sure. So your eyes did not deceive you. That is a mini game that we've added called Vaultlanders. We're going to talk about it more in some future updates, but it is something that we've injected into every episode so that it's something to kind of break up some of the pacing between like big character moments that happen where you're like, man, I need to recover from this intense moment. Then you might just run into a rando who wants to challenge you to a duel, Borderlands style with figurines.
Okay, yeah, cool. I love it. Why not? It's like Pokemon, but with figurines.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit more about the new main characters' backgrounds? Maybe give us a little bit of their personalities and if they're connected to anyone that we might know?
Yeah, I'd love to tell you everything about the characters, but I can't. So what I will do is just share a little teaser for now, and fans of the Borderlands will recognize one of our protagonists, Fran, by name, if not by her face. Her chocolate dill pickle Frogurt flavor is pretty memorable from Borderlands 3. She is the owner and purveyor of Fran's Frogurts, or what's left of it after Meloan hit it with a space laser. Octavio, another of our three protagonists, works for Fran, but it's safe to say he's got bigger dreams for himself than Frogurt. He really wants to make a name for himself and leave a mark on the world. He's just not really sure how to do it yet. And then we have Anu, our third protagonist, and she is Octavio's older sibling via adoption. And where Octavio is street smart, Anu is far more book smart. Anu is also a realist and an idealist, and that's going to lead her some pretty interesting directions in new Tales from the Borderlands.
So what is the difference between building the world and story of Tales versus your usual Borderlands game?
Kind of the key difference in building these kinds of games is that with a traditional Borderlands game, you know, you have we introduce the premise really quickly on, and it's like the whole point of you playing this game is to go fight this thing over here. And then you have two paths. You have your linear path, which is the golden path where you're advancing the main plot, and then you have your side objectives where you're leveling up, meeting more characters, rounding out your experience. But with a game like New Tales, we don't do XP. It's all narrative, and there aren't things like side quests. So, you know, the real mission is primarily one, getting rich in Borderlands, which is a very deadly proposition, but also it's all about character growth with yourself and with the characters that you're playing with. And in this case, we have 3 playable characters, so and you're kind of bouncing between playing all 3 of them, and so there's a lot of interpersonal development there that you do through the script. And you know, we have a lot of excellent writers between our Gearbox studios who have spent a lot of time building the Borderlands universe, but we definitely wanted some guys, and we partnered with key alumni from the original Tales game to kind of help us understand, like, how do you build this sort of thing, and you know, understand, like, how does one choice lead to another choice, but how can it also branch off, and how do you converge these things back together? And also, and I don't want to put Lynn on the spot too much, but we do have a doctor of interactive narrative writing on the team, which helps quite a bit.
And how many episodes will be in this story?
Yeah, so just like in Tales, we have 5 episodes. The main difference, though, is that instead of them sort of coming out, you know, one at a time across the year, users will be able to play the entire thing in one sitting if they want to. Meaning that whether you buy digital or disc, you'll get 5 episodes all at the same time, and you can play them how quickly you want to. You can also play them in whatever order you want to. If you're one of those people who likes to see the ending before you see the beginning, Lynn and I know some people like that, and we love them, and they're crazy. But if you want to do it that way, you totally can also.
Okay, cool. I was gonna say, I think you might need to name them, because that is not how most people play games, especially story-based games where you have hundreds of different choices you can make.
Yeah, you can definitely jump around. You know, whatever order you start in, you know, you'll have the ability to kind of set things up, and the game also makes some assumptions based on where you are in the plot, so that you can get one of the endings that you hopefully are trying to reach. But yeah, it's pretty neat. But again, in case I wasn't super clear, you'll get all 5 at one time.
So, do you plan for this to go into a second season, or continue making more Borderlands stories in this format?
Man, we sure would love to. But right now, we're definitely focused on landing this and delivering a fun experience this time around.
And Lynn, do you have anything else to add about the development of this and how this has been for you?
The experience from start to finish was a joy. All of the collaborators between Gearbox Studio Quebec, working with the alumni from Telltale, the mocap studio, and the talent that we brought in the cast was just incredible. And to have done that in a pandemic, New Tales from the Borderlands was a passion project for all of us. It gave us something to unite around and rally for throughout some pretty difficult years. And we are just elated to be able to finally share it with the public.
And then one last fun question just for me. James, if you could make any Frogurt flavor, what would you make?
Definitely not that dill pickle flavor. I think in my heart of hearts, I would love for it to just be a combination of all the Dole Whip flavors that you can get at Disney World, and just all in one, because I find myself getting all of them every time I go. So just having them all in one sitting would be amazing for me.
Wow. Okay. And Lynn, how about you?
I'm going to name drop one that you'll hear in the game, but I always loved it. Was we've got like a Peanutty Buddy, which just sounds like my jam. I also became allergic to bananas during the pandemic, is a weird thing that happened. And so that is taken bananas off the flavor list for me, sadly. So I think Peanutty Buddy is a safe one.
That sounds pretty good. Yeah, that's so sad though. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Who knew that could happen? But I'm discovering all the things bananas are in that I didn't before.
Well, thankfully, I don't think there are any bananas in new Tales from the Borderlands, at least not that you can ingest, so that's good.
I think we're safe.
Thank you so much, James and Lynn, for sitting down to talk to us about the new Tales from the Borderlands.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thanks for having us.
For up-to-date news on new Tales, be sure to stay tuned to IGN for more.
We're bad at this, like really bad. Tidio has many guns, talking guns, guns with legs.
I'm gonna blast you so freaking bad!
Look at new Tales from the Borderlands. That's one game I know a lot of people are happy to see more of, myself included. We're starting to wind down, but before we go, we have to talk about this and our just overall favorite games of opening night live. I'll just start with new Tales from Borderlands, because this is a game we were just saying while that was rolling off mic, that finally a game that we know isn't going to get delayed, because they were kind enough to not even formally announce it until it was done. So that's a rare thing.
We're
it's
going
a
to
nice treat.
It feels like we're pretty safe about that one and the October release date. Like you were saying, Ryan, I can't wait for this one. I love the original Tales from the Borderlands. Obviously, especially in our deeper look, we heard that they brought in some of the alumni from Telltale to work with them, which is great to hear. But it definitely seems like it's prettier, seems to run well, seems to be sort of a unique spin on Borderlands itself. And I think there's a lot of interesting storytelling that can happen in this universe.
Yeah, the original Telltale made a lot of games that I love, but honestly, Tales from Borderlands was my favorite of their games. Yeah. And I say that, I'm actually not even a big Borderlands player of the mainline shooter games, but there's just, Tales from Borderlands was so well written. The story was great. It was really funny.
Yeah.
It was just such a well done episodic series, and now I'm glad that this one is going to just be everything in one package. You don't have to wait, weeks or months at a time to get the next chunk of it. So this one just went like right near the top of my fall 2022 must play list for me. Destin.
Yeah.
Sand. You like sand. That was Atlas Fallen. I know you wanted to talk about that as one of your picks, one of your favorite picks of this event.
Well, I already talked about Where Winds Meet, which we did find out is getting a beta this year. We don't know if that means closed beta or open beta, but that's exciting. So I'll talk about my second pick, Atlas Fallen. That was slated for 2023, and a lot of sand-based abilities, like you can glide along the sand, and it's reminding a lot of people on Twitter of Forspoken, because you have these abilities. But if you go read the description about what the game actually is, yes, it has fast traversal, yes, it has those magical abilities, but you are utilizing the sand to make these really, really cool weapons and hunt these sand monsters to gain new powers.
Yeah.
And it just looks really, really pretty, first of all. And I love the idea of using magic to traverse a world. And we're seeing that more and more in modern games. They're pushing higher resolution. They're pushing higher frame rate.
It's a next-gen only game, right?
Yeah, next-gen only. It's coming to Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC. 2023, no concrete date yet. But so there's... you can use sand-infused weapons, you hunt monsters, and develop your own custom play style. So I have to imagine that means branching trees.
Yeah.
It's actually by Deck 13, the same people who made The Surge, The Surge 2, which some people are really big fans of, especially the IGN audience. And it's a fast fantasy RPG.
Nice. Jonathan.
Yes.
We saw a lot of games. Give me a favorite.
We did. I really enjoyed one that we haven't talked about. I do want to shout out was Moonbreaker. Actually, this one, I'll be honest. Mostly, I am excited for the names that are involved with it and a little bit of the spin on the genre that we saw. It's sort of a turn-based sci-fi game. I believe it's going to early access later this year. But what really excited me was the combination of Unknown Worlds, the developers of Subnautica, which I haven't played all of, but I played a bit of and really enjoyed it. And they're really great devs. Married with the creative mind of Brandon Sanderson, who is is an extremely prolific fantasy writer, sci-fi writer. He does the Mistborn series. He took over the Wheel of Time series to finish that off. He's a wonderful, excellent writer, and knowing that he's involved just instantly made this like, oh, I kind of want to know what's up with this world, because he has a real knack for creating like magic systems and ideas of essentially how combat can work. So seeing that married to a game from a really talented studio that is sort of turn-based, that's playing into like tabletop ideas, a dev taking a risk of doing something different, quite different from their last game. I love the combination of all that stuff, whether or not, what it's going to play like, what it's going to feel like, and how exciting that's going to be. It seems like I think the early access is in September, so we won't have to wait long to find out. But I like that combination quite a bit.
Well, regular listeners of Podcast Unlocked, which Destin is on, or Twitter followers of mine, were probably wondering, how has Ryan gone this entire time without mentioning Return to Monkey Island? This is my moment now. Yeah, this is my pick. This comes out the day before my birthday, and it's the last time I got a birthday game that was like completely up my alley, that I was like super crazy excited for, was whatever year Gears of War 3 came out actually on my birthday. This is the day before. And this is, again, this whole thing, Return to Monkey Island, is so improbable if you're a fan of this series and you're aware of kind of the backstory of how Ron Gilbert, the original creator, a legendary adventure game designer, had left LucasArts. There were a couple of Monkey Island games made without him. Curse of Monkey Island, the first of those, was really good, and then the Escape from Monkey Island, not as good, and then Telltale, where we were just talking about, made a good episodic series. But now here we are. Disney has gone back into, we will license out our stuff to talented developers who are a good fit, and no better fit than the original creator of Monkey Island, Ron Gilbert. So it's insane that this is even happening. I'm so excited for this. Comes out September 19th with the most tongue-in-cheek pre-order bonus of all time.
Great. Absolutely. I've never really been into Monkey Island the way that you have, but the announcer constantly flailing his arms all around throughout the whole presentation.
Play the original. Unfortunately,
and the horse armor gag. I'm like, I have to check out this game.
The special editions that LucasArts did in the 360 era, which kind of just brought back the originals and added an optional modern graphics layer and voice acting. Yeah, you get Stan as he's a parody of a used car salesman, but he sells used coffins. So yeah, he's just constantly flailing his arm. This is going to be awesome. I hope we get a lot of new Monkey Island fans.
Gotta get that horse armor right.
Yes, the totally useless horse armor that will just sit in your inventory. All right, well that about does it for us and Opening Night Live. But this is just the beginning of Gamescom. Over the next 5 days, IGN will be bringing you live coverage from the heart of Gamescom in Cologne, Germany. We will have more exclusive trailers.
All right, so that about wraps it up for today. If you haven't already, or if you're checking us out later on the restream, subscribe to the channel.
Parting thoughts? Parting PSA?
Depending on what time to start, I will start streaming it tomorrow
celebrating video games, but the global games community is a force of good, and together we can move mountains. Gamescom Goes Green is the initiative to make Gamescom the first climate-friendly gaming event in the world by taking emission-reducing measures, as well as working with climate partners to support energy projects in Brazil and clean cooking stoves in Nigeria. This is just a starting point for what's to come, so thanks to all participating companies and visitors for helping make it happen. Gamescom is also doing its part to support developers from Ukraine. Ukrainian game devs are being offered free exhibition space and free tickets to the Gamescom Developer Conference, DevCom. There are many ways to help those in need. Find your way.
Thank you, Destin. I want to thank you and Jonathan as well, to the crew working behind the scenes to make this live show go off without hitch. And most of all, thanks to all of you for watching at home. IGN will be back tomorrow at 6 a.m. Pacific,
all right. Peace out,
9
everybody.
a.m. Eastern, with day one. This was day 0 of Gamescom